What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast, my name is Kyle Dabro. So, in this video, we're going to go over the phenomenal Monday night matchup that we had between the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens from last night. So, the Ravens beat the Colts with a score of 31 to 25 after mounting one of the biggest fourth quarter comebacks that we've seen all year. The Ravens were down 16 points in the fourth quarter, yet Lamar Jackson was able to put the Ravens on his back in the fourth quarter and score two touchdowns and convert two two-point conversions to tie the game at 25 apiece before it went into overtime. The Ravens won the coin toss going into overtime, and then they just proceeded to march down the field against the Colts, and Lamar Jackson connected with Hollywood Brown for the game-winning touchdown for the 31 to 25 result. It was one of, if not the best comeback that we've seen all year so far. And this was one of Lamar Jackson's greatest performances we've seen from him early on in his career. He had 504 total yards of offense in this game and had one of the best completion percentages I've ever seen from a quarterback when a quarterback has thrown it for over 40 times. He went 37 of 43 for 442 yards passing, four passing touchdowns, and had 62 yards rushing as well. And to kind of focus on the game here, up until the fourth quarter, the Ravens looked dead in the water. The Colts defense had held the Ravens to 9 points of offense through three quarters. Carson Wentz and the Colts offense were moving the ball well all night against Baltimore's defense, and the Colts were up 25 to 9 with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Yet the biggest moment in this game to me was when Calais Campbell blocked an Indianapolis field goal that would have given Indianapolis an 11-point lead with just about 5 minutes left to go in the game. And after that block kick from Campbell, all of the momentum swung towards Baltimore and they capitalized on it. And they were fortunate that Indy missed a game-winning field goal after Baltimore had tied the game at 25 apiece. And when Indy missed that kick at the end of the game, it forced it into overtime. Baltimore won the coin toss, and I think everybody kind of knew what was going to happen just based on the role that Lamar had been on. This is a huge win for the Ravens. I thought they were going to be 3-2 after this game. It was kind of funny because when I was typing up my notes for this video, I was mostly going to be talking about how impressive the Colts were against the Ravens for most of this game. But despite the fact that I think that the Ravens got outplayed for three quarters, they got it together when it mattered the most, and they just dominated the Colts in the fourth quarter and took it over in overtime. And that's why the Ravens are sitting at 4-1 instead of 3-2 after this phenomenal game that we saw last night. And now I got to flip it to the Colts. I don't really know what to say about Indianapolis at this point. It's like I said, they had control of this game for three quarters last night. Carson Wentz and Jonathan Taylor have been making huge plays for them offensively. And up until the third quarter, the Colts defense was giving Lamar and the Ravens offense fits the entire time. And I have to focus on two areas in particular in why they lost this game. That is their defense and their special teams. To speak on their defense real quick, they were already thin going into this game with their secondary depth, and it became even thinner when Xavier Rhodes had to leave the game in the second half. And Baltimore, to their credit, they exploited that weakness in Indianapolis secondary to the nth degree when they were starting to mount their comeback. And it seemed like the front four and the front seven that had contained Lamar through most of the game, they couldn't slow him down whatsoever in the fourth quarter. And you could tell by the end of the game, Indy's defense had just looked gassed, and they seemed to be no match against Baltimore once the momentum had swung fully in favor of the Ravens. Despite the factors at play, it's still shocking to me that the Colts gave up 22 points to Baltimore to end the game. 22 unanswered points, to be more specific. It's just something that I can't get over. And it takes me to my second point, which is the special teams. There's no other way to say it that the special teams unit for the Colts last night, they blew it. They missed an extra point, they had a blocked field goal, and they had a miss on a game-winning field goal. It's just utterly embarrassing. That's 7 points that were left on the board for Indy, and had they been able to cash in on one of those three kicks, the Colts would be sitting at 2-3 instead of 1-4. But they couldn't execute, and that's why they're sitting at 1-4. And it's tough to see those performances from Carson Wentz and Jonathan Taylor go to waste like that. It's extremely frustrating to see those stats just get thrown out of the window if you're an Indy fan. I mean, Carson Wentz, he threw for over 400 yards last night. I believe he had 2 passing touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor had a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown as well. Indianapolis' offense looked great. And even despite the fact that they lost this game, they did what they needed to do to give them the best chance to win. It's just the special teams couldn't cash in on the opportunities. And the defense was just so gassed at the end of the game. That's some of the factors to why they lost this game. It honestly kind of reminded me of a couple years ago when the Patriots were playing against the Falcons back in Super Bowl 51, where the Falcons had a 16-point lead with about the same amount of time that the Ravens were faced with last night in the fourth quarter. And it's just crazy just how momentum can really swing an entire game once it really gets in favor of the team that's trying to mount the comeback. And the Ravens took full advantage of it last night. You know, to me, that the biggest moment was Calais Campbell blocking that field goal. Because if the Ravens don't block that field goal, I think the Colts win this game, you know, by 1 possession when it's all said and done. But it's like I said, this was a phenomenal game last night. The Ravens are legit sitting at 4-1 in the AFC North. And Lamar Jackson at this point, there has to be some conversations around him at this point on some MVP considerations, just because he is carrying this team despite the fact of all the injuries that they faced early on in the season, with Gus Edwards being out with a torn ACL, J.K. Dobbins being out with a torn ACL, Marcus Peters being out with a torn ACL. They've really rallied together around this unit that they have, and they're making the most of it. So you got to give a lot of credit to John Harbaugh and the players for being able to rise above all these issues that they face with injuries and getting this win last night against the Colts. It was a fantastic game. And if you're a Colts fan, it's just got to be tough to see those performances go to waste, because I think the Colts did more than enough to win this game. But it's like I said, special teams has to execute, and they just couldn't. So with that said, you guys, that'll wrap it up from me. If you guys like the video, hit the like button below. If you guys want to support the channel in any way, shape, or form, hit that subscribe button below. Any sort of support that we can give for the channel, Kevin and I definitely appreciate it. Once again, just thank you guys for tuning in to watch the video, and we'll see you guys later.